is Tina. I'm a writer, researcher, as well as a consultant, and I research data and AI. I wanted you to delve a bit more into the infrastructure conversation, just because a lot of the time the conversation across Africa and maybe Americas and Europe is always different. It's a different era where everyone is having the conversation about AI, but I want to really understand what the future looks like in terms of the scalability and what is going to be unique about Africa's own infrastructure process. When we're looking at the future, when we're looking at the scalability and the building process, what is going to be so unique in the landscape of the continent? And do you feel like this is a unique opportunity to create something that is going to take the continent into a different domain altogether and create something not essentially visionary, but just totally different from like the world? And how do you think we're going to get that? So I want to just take your minds into more of a futuristic lens and maybe start to like think about some of the projects you're doing beyond that. What is that going to look like?
And who do you want to respond to?
Anyone, please.
Okay. There's a lady in blue right behind you. If you could pass the microphone.
Hi everyone, I'm Anael from International SOS. My question may be for Cassava Technology, by the way. Congratulations for the award yesterday, and probably in-group can back up. It's about security. So data infrastructures face security challenges, for example, in the banking sector in Africa. In Mauritius, the banks, they don't guarantee payment security, like in banks in France, for example. And at International SOS, we process a lot of PHI every day, so personal health information, through our assistance centers in Johannesburg and Mauritius, but not yet with African infrastructure. So my question is, how do we mitigate the security risk within data infrastructure in Africa?
Amazing. We have also a lady in red.
Hello, my name is Christine Nganga. I'm with the National Treasury in Kenya under the PPP Directorate. And we've been trying to crack the code on the role for government to do AI, build out data centers, etc. But I think a couple of things that stand out for me that we still need to figure out is we keep hearing about the offtake, right? So who's going to use the data centers? Are we looking to be back end for data, back office for data for Europe, etc.? What is the journey? And therefore, where should we be plugging in as government? You mentioned about the hubs, the technology hubs. You're talking about the work that you're doing. Where are we in the journey of, backbone infrastructure to where we actually have applications that are fit for purpose and actually getting commercialized?
Amazing.
If you could just tell us that journey.
Who would you like to respond to that?
I think anyone who has something to put into it, but I would think OpenAI and Cassava to start off. Thanks.
Okay, great. Emmanuel can start with.
Yeah, I think I like what you actually pose as a question, because it very much ties to agency and empowerment, right? And I think for me, I do see AI as a once in a lifetime opportunity, and this is something I perceived even before I joined the company. Because as Harvey had stated, taking charge of your future, I do believe AI actually provides that kind of agency towards people. We are talking about students. Technically, if the connectivity issue is fixed, you can actually type it on ChatGPT, find a solution, right? So you can actually use for the first time a research assistant or chief of staff or an assistant in general for your respective operation, for your, whether you want to start a startup or anything. So I do believe this is once in a lifetime opportunity that Africa needs to take charge of, and for us as a company, we are proud that we actually, with our technology, providing that kind of access. So for me, that's actually the biggest or the strongest argument for AI, the fact that it provides people agency, create a company without having to spend thousands of dollars on building the entire infrastructure. You can actually use a service in there that you can pay maybe $4 a month for. So that's my argument in terms of agency and empowerment that people finally have through AI.
So I'll take the difficult question on data sovereignty. A sigh of relief on the panel. Because I think I can share a different, I think also I can share a different experience. So we're a European company, and we're very much grounded into the GDPR framework. And you may have followed the European Commission kicked off in 2019, a new framework around digital identity and with this strong concern about how do you protect people's data. And the answer comes in multiple forms. It comes first in the form that the data belongs to the person and it sits with them in their digital wallet in this instance, and not in a central honeypot, which creates a very attractive space for many hackers and all kinds of villains, data villains around the world. And it's in fact pushing to something more personal, but also of which the control is more personal to the person. And that, I think, is a first answer. We do have the technology that allows for that to happen, and so people are not, don't have to disclose the entirety of their data. They can actually, disclose the fact that they're over 18, and that's all. Today, when you provide your passport, for example, the person reading your passport knows where you live, where you were born, and all of that data, you might not want them to know that. And that you can replicate this example in all of the spaces of digital usage, whether it's health, whether it's education, whether it's the work you do every day, whether it's the kind of prompt that you actually put into Claude, if you'd like that to be your assistant. And so I think there are, or ChatGPT, sorry to my, pick your favorite. Pick your favorite. So that, I think, is the first answer. There are regulatory frameworks out there that allow for that shift to happen. The second is, again, and I'm coming back to I think people need to maintain, and countries have different specificities. It's important for local governments. It can be done in a way that's consistent across. We speak here about regional impact. It can be done in a way that's interoperable and meaningful beyond just a national space, right? But it's important to offer people the ability to control their data, to have redress mechanism if something goes wrong, to be able to understand the logs that have been used with their data. Let's take Estonia, that is always a reference when we talk about digitalization. If you're an Estonian, you can actually go through the log of the data and how your personal data has been used, and if you think something's wrong, you can actually redress that. And so I think there are models, they can be brought back to Africa and they can be made local, but the intention is that the structural and the legal framework, the governance around it, allows for protection, and some solutions exist.
Hardy? You did have a question.
Okay, who should own? Yeah, so I was looking at you because
to answer.
the World Bank is here, so why did you go first, and then I will.
No, sure.
Yeah.
So I think digital, in my view, is really a private sector play. And I don't think government should necessarily be building out digital, to be honest. I think there are many other priorities that are more difficult for private sector to participate in. So to the extent that you can create the environment that is conducive for private sector to participate, then I think we'll actually see a lot of data centers being built, because between the technological companies and the financiers, there's enough money and enough technology and structure to actually put these into the market. So that would have been my sort of quick response, that let's help the government to create the environment for these companies to actually thrive.
No, thanks, Linda. Let me add to that. The offtake conversation is, I think, in some ways, it's a red herring. I think it's a use case issue. I don't think Africa is limited in terms of use cases. Every African country, if you take the key sectors that are drivers of economic development, so if you take agriculture, for example, just the use cases within the agriculture space. We have a project right now where we are creating digital twins for smallholder plots, where a farmer can actually have a digital twin of their 1 acre, 2 acre, or 10 acre plot, and they can go right down to the moisture on their farm and get recommendations around what if. They can play a game. What if I put barley, this time? What kind of yield would I get? Is it fit for my microclimate? What kind of diseases should I be worried about? Can you project for me how much money I would make if I put French beans, for example. So it's all about the use cases. And I think in the public sector, where we have seen limitations is governments really sitting down and not just saying we want AI. It's governments sitting down and saying, in the context of revenue collection, here are the 5 use cases, and the priority one for us is fraud. Okay, in the context of policing, for example, this is the use case that is a priority for us. The private sector is not short of creativity and innovation. I agree with Linda. Every time that the government has tried to come into the digital space, all that has happened is to delay the build out of infrastructure. You crowd out the private sector, you distort the market, and it takes a couple of years for the market to recover and for the private sector to come back. And then to your question around if we are futuristic about Africa, where really can we see ourselves as far as AI is concerned? Yesterday we launched our AI skills and compute platform here in Kigali. And the chair of that initiative, Dr. Agnes Kalibata, who is a former Rwandese Minister of Agriculture, shared with us what I think is a really powerful example of what we can imagine. They asked 5 and 10-year-olds to draw on a piece of paper what a farmer in Africa would look like in 50 years. And not a single one of them showed a farmer that was holding a plow. Not a single one of them showed a farmer that was holding a hoe. Not a single one of them showed a farmer that was holding any of the implements that we have. All of those kids, I think there were 50 of them, drew farmers that had iPods, that had smartphones, this is what they imagine as being, if you think of a 5-year-old today, they're being told, imagine you at 55. And that's what they imagine themselves as a farmer. And I think that that's the future that we need to enable, and the technology is here.
Can I just add to that very quickly?
Yes, okay.
Because I do think what I would want to see for the future is to close the gaps that Katie was talking about. Because I think they're huge, and I think that's going to leave us behind. And I think the little kids that you're talking about, a lot of kids in Africa don't have access to technology. And I think that's detrimental for our continent, because it means that they are going to be left behind. And so really for me, that's the future that I want to see, where we've closed the gaps and everybody has got access.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Because of time, sadly, we have to end the conversation here. But please, let's appreciate our panelists. Thank you all.
The annual Africa CEO Forum.
L'Africa CEO Forum.
Africa CEO Forum.
Le Davos africain.
Biggest event of its kind on the continent.
The best partner for us is the one that accepts to have a deal that is a win-win.
Si nous arrivons à faire du beurre et de la pâte de cacao, nous pouvons créer un genre d'OPEP chocolatier.
As I entered this room, I could smell money.
Give us 3, maximum 4 years Africa will not, and I repeat, and you can challenge me, will not import any more fertilizer from anywhere.
And be building a pipeline of CEOs that by the time they're between 30 and 35, they're ready to take over as CEOs and run companies.
Let this electricity business really growing in Africa, because without it, it's difficult to make industries, it's difficult for people to have a better way of life.
We need to put these women into positions that will help build their leadership so that when they get into the workforce, first they have the appetite, but also they are being supported throughout.
We all know that African women are the most entrepreneurial in the world.
Identifying potential champions that you can, through equity, grow into regional champions and then global champions, I think is the objective.
I was really so surprised and excited to see so many people from all over Africa.
The IEA Electricity 2026 report confirms electricity demand is now growing faster than global GDP, marking a structural shift in how economies develop. The most critical transformation is the move from rigid, carbon-intensive system to digital, decentralized, efficiency-driven energy ecosystems. Electricity demand is growing structurally, and efficiency is the fastest, most cost-effective lever to strengthen grids while accelerating the transition. Grid constraints are limiting transition progress globally. Grid-enhancing technologies and digital tools could unlock between 1,200 and 1,600 gigawatts of system flexibility through better data and control. Digitalization and automation transformation infrastructure from a cost burden into a scalable enabler. Data improves visibility, unlocks flexibility, and allows grids to operate more efficiently while accelerating deployment in fast-growing markets. According to the IEA Electricity 2026 report, nearly 80% of global electricity demand growth through 2030 will come from emerging and developing economies, including Africa. Africa is not just participating in the energy transition, it has the opportunity to define it. By deploying decentralized, digital-first systems, the continent can industrialize, strengthen resilience, and avoid the constraints of legacy infrastructure. Our partnership reflects Schneider Electric's long-term commitment to Africa's competitiveness. Schneider Electric aims to assist African leaders turn energy ambitions into reliable, affordable, and sustainable outcomes.
Hello, I'm Ethiopius Safara, Vice President for Africa at the International Finance Corporation. I'm pleased to share a few thoughts on the upcoming Africa CEO Forum. At IFC, a member of the World Bank Group, we've been proud to co-host the forum over the years. It has grown into a credible platform that convenes investors, business leaders, and policymakers to move from dialogue to investment and from partnership to scale. Africa's opportunity today is scale. Connecting markets to markets is how innovation, capital, and entrepreneurship translate into globally competitive companies. This is why this year's theme, Scale or Fail, Why Africa Must Embrace Shared Ownership, is so important. Africa's next phase of growth requires us to collaborate even more deeply. It will require pooling capital, sharing risk, and building stronger regional ecosystems that allow businesses to expand and compete. For IFC, our partnership with the Africa CEO Forum is part of a larger architecture for scale. It creates continuity, aligns decision makers, and acts as a conduit, moving ideas from conversation into capital and ambition into investment. Our focus is to strengthen the conditions for long-term investment, help African companies grow from local champions into regional and global competitors, and deepen public-private cooperation where scale is built. Africa's transformation will ultimately be powered by partnerships. Platforms like the Africa CEO Forum are the connective infrastructure that allows those partnerships to form, compound, and deliver results. We look forward to engaging in Kigali with leaders who are committed to building and scaling Africa's future together.
Kigali has become a trusted platform where public and private sector leaders come not just to talk, but to make decisions and move towards execution. We offer a truly neutral and efficient environment where deals can quickly translate into partnerships and investments. And that strategy of attracting forums such as the CEO Forum is really aligned with how we position Rwanda as a hub for investments, logistics, and services, including conferencing. So hosting the CEO Forum is for us not an isolated event. It's really part of a broader strategy to connect capital to opportunities across the continent. We feel that by bringing leaders together here, we also reinforce Kigali's role as a gateway where deals are initiated, structured, and accelerated. We are a continent of roughly 1.5 billion people across 55 countries. But in practice, many of those markets are quite small on their own. Only a handful, for example, of African countries have populations above 50 million people. So the continental opportunity is enormous, but it is still not connected enough to fully operate as a single market. That is why, for example, the infrastructure issue is so important. If Africa is going to unlock its potential, its scale, we need new transport links, we need energy systems, we need logistics platforms and digital connectivity that allows goods, services, capital, and people to move more efficiently across borders. And that's really what turns a collection of national markets into a truly integrated continental market, and then unlocks this scale that we are referring to. And that's why really the forum is so important. The theme this year is about scale and shared ownership. It brings together senior leaders from business, government, and finance to focus on big cross-border issues, how to connect markets, how to mobilize capital, how to close the infrastructure gap and build partnerships that can turn Africa's potential into real scale. We contribute in multiple ways, but let me highlight 3 ways in which we contribute. The first one is by demonstrating execution, showing that reforms, coordinations, and speed can really reduce risk and unlock investments. Over the last 2 years, we have recorded more than $5 billion in investment commitments. And that matters because investors respond not only to opportunity, but also to confidence, to predictability, stability, and the ability to move. The second one is Rwanda also contributes by supporting and being a champion of regional integration and stronger regional value chains. And that's because we believe that Africa's scale will not come from national markets acting in isolation. It will come from a true connection of production, trade, logistics, and capital across borders. And we have to act in a more deliberate way. And thirdly, Rwanda contributes by acting as a platform and hub for investments, logistics, and services. And that's why hosting events like the CEO Forum, as I stated earlier, is part of our strategy. It really allows us to bring together leaders and decision makers across government and business, as well as finance, to build partnerships and align on common priorities so that together, collectively, we move from ideas to implementation. So join us at the Africa CEO Forum here in Kigali from May 14th to 15th, 2026.